There.
Pull your thing back up and let it
Recording in progress.
Electronics turned off.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Had an assistant, but then he went to Washington, and then hired a guy part-time. The corner make out, so I don't know what they're doing now. It doesn't really communicate as evidence by it. Didn't know what it doesn't.
Good morning. I'll call the Land Use and Information Committee meeting for August 2nd, 2022 to order. Notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84 Open Meeting Law. This time we'll accept any public comments, 3-minute time limit. Are there any public comments, general public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next is the approval of the agenda order.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda order.
Motion by Mr. Payton,
Second that.
second by Ms. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of the minutes from the July 5th, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Blumberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is public hearing. Jason, will you please?
Notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, at 9 a.m. at the Burnett County Government Center, room 165, Town of Menan, Severn, Wisconsin, regarding the following: Burnett County Land Use Shoreline Protection Ordinances. Number 1, conditional use permit, CUP 2209 Pardon, doing business at Pardon's Jack Pine Campground LLC. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Swiss, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Brent Pardon, on behalf of Pardon's Jack Pine Campground LLC, has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of the Burnett County Land Use Code of Ordinances to modify the existing campground from 75 RV sites and 25 tent sites to 100 RV sites. Located at 7880 State Road 77 in the RR3 zoning district, Lot 2, CSM Volume 27, page 26, in the northeast quarter, Section 29, Town 41 North, Range 16 West. 2, conditional use permit, CUP 2220 Gonzalez and Frost. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Severn, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Brianna Frost, on behalf of Christopher Gonzalez, has made an application for a conditional use permit for the terms of Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to operate a home-based tailoring business in a residential district located at 8048 State Road 70 in the RR2 zoning district, Lot 1, CSM Volume 20, page 145, in Government Lot 3, Section 7, Town 38 North, range 16 west. Conditional use permit for 3, CUP 2211 Schmucker, that one's been moved till next month. Conditional use permit 4, CUP 2212 Hendrickson. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Meehan, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Michael Hendrickson has made an application for a conditional use permit with the terms of the Burnett County Land Use and Shoreline Protection Code of Ordinances to modify the existing marina approved via CUP 1060 in 1996 by dividing off a 250-foot wide, 1.27 acre parcel. On the east end of the parcel, the marina would still be limited to 20 slips. However, now the marina parcel would be approximately 3.5 acres. Located at 6659 State Road 70 in the RR1 zoning district from Government Lot 1, Section 34, Town 39 North, Range 16 West. Number 5, conditional use permit CUP 1806, Nettle doing business as St. Croix Pines Campground LLC. Public notice hereby given to all persons in the town of Lincoln, Burnett County, Wisconsin, that Paul Nettle on behalf of St. Croix Pines Campground is asking for a review of his conditional use permit campground located at 9295 Parida Road in the A2 zoning district in the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter, Section 3, Town 39 North, Range 17 West.
Thank you, Jason. First, on public hearing, conditional use permit CUP 22-09. Pardon. Will the applicant please explain? Come up to the, don't we have a mic or not?
Just stand up by the table, that one will pick you up.
Brent Pardon, I'm here to, my original conditional use was for 75 RV sites and 25 tent sites, and, I'm trying to just go with, all RV sites, 100 sites.
Committee have any questions or?
Are you not getting anybody taking the overnight sites? Is that why you're doing this?
Yeah, it's pretty slow with the, tent sites were pretty much, nobody wants to tent camp anymore. Also, with, RV sites, I'd go longer term where I could kind of control who's in and out instead of taking a reservation over the phone, and I don't know who they are.
Any other questions?
I think not at this time. I think I'd like to go through the public comments first. We may call you back up.
This time I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comments?
Good morning, committee members. My name is Joy Dressel, and I'm a resident of Swift Township. In the initial 2007 Town of Swift Comprehensive Plan and restated in 2021, it was recommended that new commercial development be located near existing sites in Danbury along the highway corridor. This campground does meet that objective, supporting the smart growth area strategy of the township. So the campground is in the right spot, especially for the new zoning district. It's just that there are some issues and questions on the status of this property. First phase of the campground provided 25 tent sites and 25 RV sites. Last fall, the tent sites were converted to RV sites with plumbing installed, and new tent sites were created further east. There's also a 16-fixture water house on the property. The county website doesn't show permits for the shower house or the installation of its plumbing. So the question is, does the house need to be expanded since there are 100+ sites and a shower house on the property now? Perhaps the applicant should meet with the town board to discuss the feasibility of connecting to the Danbury sewer system when this house fails. Maybe make this one of the conditions. Campground's license with the state is for 50 sites. County issued CUP is for 100 sites. And the campground's website is advertising 100 RV sites as well as tent sites with water spouts and power outlets. These discrepancies need to be addressed. Looking at the 2018 CUP Condition 1 requires screening, and it goes on to say that screening is needed along a portion of the highway. It doesn't appear that this has ever been addressed by the applicant. Would it be useful to include a deadline on this requirement as well as a definition of acceptable screening? In the January 7th, 2022 LUI work group meeting, Jason Town provided all of those in attendance with a spreadsheet of the campgrounds in the county for discussion on developable acres. Cardon's campground is shown to have approximately 14.7 developable acres versus the 20 listed on page 16 of the meeting packet. Wondering if the discrepancy could be not accounting for wetlands on the property since the wetlands aren't mentioned on page 16. Given the current discrepancy in number of campsites, numerous conflicting mapping configurations provided for today's meeting, and questions around the size of the wetlands, time should be taken to verify all relevant information. Please make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed so the committee is well informed before taking action on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good morning, I'm Jerry Kraus, 6720 Hayden Lake Road in Danbury. It's my understanding that the town of Swiss is in support of converting the 25 tent sites to RV sites. I'm also generally in favor of that conversion. However, as Joy just mentioned, I would urge the committee to gather more information concerning the existing campground and requiring the applicant to provide the details necessary for you to make an informed decision. Along those lines, I know that there's a complete campground map that's required by early next spring, but it seems to me that at this juncture, having something certified by a licensed surveyor that shows all the improvements, the roadways, the buildings, the septic systems, and the 100-unit sites, which would be delineating which are the 75 and which are the 25 sites, relative to where the wetlands are. There apparently was a DNR delineation report done in 2018 as part of the first CUP application, and also relative to the required 50-foot undisturbed screening around a good portion of the property. As Joy had mentioned, there seems to be a discrepancy between what is developable and what is not on this particular parcel. It went from 14.7 to now 20 developable acres. I think, importantly, sorting out that discrepancy and trying to make sense of it is an important concept. As Joy mentioned, screening I think is important, and screening along State Highway 77. I think that you have a chance to clarify what this suggestion was or requirement in 2018 really was. This is a major gateway to Burnett County, as many of you know, into the Northwoods here. And given the lay of the land much lower than State Highway 77, as you drive in towards Danbury, you're met with an entire array of reflective light and a lot of metal-clad buildings, together with a collection of parked trailers, both ATVs, decks, and fire pits. And so I would really encourage you to strongly consider some robust screening. Just last month, you did that in connection with a 3-unit campground between Yellow River and Round Lake, where there was an existing heavily treated screening surrounding that particular parcel. So I would really encourage you to give to really take time to study what's being suggested. I think this is ideal also for the RRC zoning district that you created this last year. It's the best tool, it's the appropriate approach, and allow for future additional amenities at a place like this, a camp store, a bar, restaurant, the kinds of things that you described over the last year on a very busy state highway. Thank you so much.
Any other public comments?
George Costello, Town of Swiss, resident on Cranberry Lake Drive. With the talk of the rezoning, I would just like to comment that the Town of Swiss would be in strong support of a rezone that is going to be required to meet the accomplishments that we're talking about. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Morning, Don Hamilton, South Devils Lake Drive. I support CUP 2209, but I too recommend the committee table this CUP to allow the campground to be rezoned to the new RRRC zoning district. And I think there's a number of really good reasons why the parcel should be rezoned. First off, as mentioned, it's the ideal candidate. It's in the right place. As a Swiss comprehensive land use plan identifies this corridor as a commercial area. It's also the right size. It complies with the new code. It's under 150 sites. So right now, I can't think of a better candidate for the new zoning district than this parcel. Town board support, I think that's there. It complies with the plan, and I'm sure they're gonna support it. County support, I would hope this committee would support using this new zoning district, as the whole intent of creating it was to allow campgrounds to evolve away from a legal non-conforming status to a conforming permitted use. Owner support, I don't know Brent, but I would think that from an operational, marketing, and investment perspective, I would suspect he would prefer the campground be a permitted use versus a legal non-conforming use. I mean, that alone would improve the future market value of the property. And timing, the timing's perfect. We're at the end of the camping season and pausing for a month to get a rezone in order to accompany the CUP. It would be done well before the 23 camping season. And additionally, I think tabling it would allow the committee to clarify a number of open issues, some of which were already discussed. The developable acres question, definitely, there's clearly a 5.3 acre disconnect between last year and this year. So we need a definite, thorough analysis to clarify exactly how many developable acres are there. If there isn't enough, I think subdividing the north 10 acres, if the campground needs more acres, then re-subdivide a portion or all of the 10 acres that was taken out of this parcel, put it back into the campground. Brent owns the north 10. I think that might even result in a couple of more sites or maybe room for a future expansion like a bar or restaurant. Also a wetland delineation map. As a historically wet parcel, this map is needed and would help clarify the number of developable acres. And lastly, the bath shower house. I don't see a permit in the packet. I don't know if one was pulled or if the proper inspections have been made or if that's included in the developable acres analysis. So in closing, Mr. Chair, I support this campground. I support this CUP. However, I recommend the committee make and pass a motion to table this CUP to allow for clarity and to allow for a rezone to accompany this CUP and bring the campground into compliance with the Swiss comprehensive plan. Thank you for considering my input.
Any other public comments?
Mark Krause. I don't know if I do this or with the applicant. Brent's been working with us and Jason all along. There was a certified survey map done originally on that. The campground parcel was 26 acres. We did not calculate developable area at that time. It wasn't really needed. That could easily be found. Wetland delineation was done by Marty Schutt. There's a delineation report. I believe Jason has copies of it. It's on the DNR website or wherever it needs to be. So that was done right up front before anything was developed out there. And we've been continuing to map things as they go. When Brent laid out the additional 50 after the first campsites in 50, Keystoner did the whole plan. We staked out all the lots. And so we're very close to having things. We just haven't updated any of the new campers per se for our final campground map, but it's not far away. Boundaries, everything else is in. Wetlands have been delineated. The shower house and so forth are there. I believe Corey, Jackson Plumbing put the shower in that. I don't know about the permits, but I'm sure they can answer questions on that. If there's more questions about the specifics, we've got a lot of information on the campground and continue. I worked with them from the beginning, so. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Any other public comments?
I'd like to ask Brent to come back up and talk about some of these issues a bit more.
We did receive 2 letters from DOT, right?
Yes.
I guess I'll let Jason talk about that for a second first, and then.
Yeah, so you got 2 letters from DOT. You got one dated July 28th that was talking about access potential issues. They were going to meet with him, and then they met with him yesterday. We got that email. They see no issue with him modifying the existing campground. Will not cause additional conflict points for highway traffic safety. They're still working with him on best options for access though.
So that's the first one to talk about a little bit, Brent. What are the plans to
Yeah.
fix that?
So I do have two access routes, so I guess pretty much whatever they decide is, so if I decide that I have to shut down the highway access because I have another access, that's,
The one from the town road around to the.
on 8th Avenue.
Okay. And have you decided how you're gonna do that yet, or which?
There's already an access there, so.
I understand. I mean, that's the one you're gonna go to, you think? That,
He had a couple different options. He had one where, I would pave from the highway to the right of way, kind of an entrance there.
a turn lane, so to speak?
Right, and 8th Avenue is kind of a dangerous intersection, so they didn't wanna shut down the highway, entrance exit without dealing with 8th Avenue.
It would just be one way or the other then?
Right.
And the only reason I bring it up in a technical sense, we always say in compliance with all applicable state, federal, local regulations, and that's a minor hiccup
Right.
during the process, but
Right, and I met with him yesterday and, they didn't see any problem with.
the one thing I'd like to throw out is, one of the things that Don Hamilton didn't mention about the new zoning district was, we pretty much said as a committee and as a county board, that someone who wishes to be no longer non-conforming, but conforming and in compliance, we would not charge them for that rezoning if they were an existing permitted campground or other business for that matter. What do you think about that? Do you?
I really don't know a whole lot, what the advantages, disadvantages would be.
But, I'm not gonna make you do it, don't get me wrong, but what I would do, Ryu, and wanted to do this, is I would roll my 10 acres in the back into it as well. It would lower the dimensional requirements for residential. It's a mixed-use district, so it's still fine to have residential lots in it, but it would allow, by permitted use, some additional things to be squeezed in perhaps.
Okay.
And it would also, make you, should you guys want to flip it someday, a conforming use rather than a non-conforming use. And the purpose is, some expansion would be allowed, some other uses would be allowed, and smaller lots would be allowed. And as they all have said, you're right next to a future potential connection to public sewer, even though you may not need one for a while, but you could. It's the kind of place that this would be favored. And speaking for only me, but I think the committee would agree, we would not charge you for doing this if you wanted to do it. It would take, we'd have to do it next month. We couldn't do it now. But, just throw that out there.
Okay.
I think you're okay with septic capacity in my analysis, because you're gonna do away with those campsites, those transient sites, let's call them.
Right.
Altogether, and you're sized for 100, you have 100. I think you can do what you want to do today, but then you would remain non-conforming use and really essentially prevent it from doing much of anything else. So I guess, we can postpone it a month if you want to look at it harder, but I'm not going to say you have to today.
Yeah, I definitely will look into it. It's, being that they're two separate parcels now, or to combine the two.
Well, they could both be rezoned. The combining of the two, would be another matter if you were remapping or whatever. There's some other concerns about the wetland delineation stuff, but Jason can address the developable acres issue. To answer that, I don't have that one on my list, but, that's what I think this is a good idea. I really do. As a committee advocated creating this district for this purpose. It's a good place to do it. It being the long-term issues maybe to your benefit. But but we aren't gonna force you to do it either. You have to agree to sign it, but it wouldn't cost you any more fees at least in my position.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it. I just don't know, I'd like to have some time to
Let's talk about the other issues a little bit more than, any other, anybody else have anything more for Brent?
My bath shower house was with the original conditional use.
Yeah, I noticed that was shown on the original plan, so. That was accessory to that, so, okay.
The only hiccup with that, changing it, then it has to go to the town, they have to approve the rezoning.
Yeah,
And then it has to go to county board for approval.
right. So it's a bit of a delay in that, but I think we've heard testimony from a town official that the thought is fine. I'm pretty confident that Jerry would be okay with that too, even though he's not here. So that's 2 of 3. And that no doubt Terry Nelson would be okay with it. So, because it's within the intended future plan. That plan is probably not cycled into our official plan yet, but you've been at the town, town's been amending the plan, right? So it may not be what the language is in it today, but will be.
The town's been amending the plan.
It's published. It's done. It's done.
Okay, there's no other public comments. I'll close the public hearing at this time. Thank you, Brent.
Tim Mullen is also on the phone here.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Do you have any comments, Deb?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, public hearing has been closed, so committee decide what they want to do. To change the zoning would be, they would have to make an application and come before us next month, then, right?
Correct, yes, if they wanted to rezone it.
And then it wouldn't go, well, could possibly go to county board also in September, but.
Correct.
A 2-month delay in what they want to do.
Months.
It's on.
Well, but the one question I have is are we confident we have 100 developable acres?
Within 100 sites?
Within the, you know, because the original parcel, if I remember correctly, was before Brent split off the North 10, or not?
So right now, with the parcel is 26 acres in total.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
But you have to subtract out wetlands, and I'm sure we have that delineation report, I just can't find it right now. And then you got the 50-foot buffer, you know, that you gotta subtract around the perimeter.
I said that wrong. I meant to say 100 developable acres adequate for 100 sites.
Yes.
Correct my misstatement.
So you'd need to have 20 developable acres in order to have 100 sites underneath the new rule.
Right.
So I don't know for sure if we have that or not at this point. I can't answer that. So that would be the only questionable unless he included the acres to the north.
And the point about that is we don't really care how compact the sites are as long as they meet code, but that there's enough developable acreage to support the number of sites.
Correct.
So the additional 10 acres to the north, if that was, could be added back in at need, if it turns out that to be the case.
Yes.
That also lends itself more towards the recommended rezoning, or advocated or asked for, however you want to put it, to clean it all up and make it conforming with no issues at all. Wouldn't be hard to do. But again, we can rezone people whether they asked or not, but I would rather we not do that.
Any other comments from the committee?
So you essentially today have to decide if you want to go forward and approve this application, or essentially, I suppose, postpone it for a month or two. to let the applicant decide if he wants to pursue a rezone.
Okay, I think we, based on, if presuming we have, I'm not even sure we have to have acreage to support 100 sites, because when we approved this initially, we did not require that.
There was 10 sites per acre when you approved it. Yep.
But that makes it more non-conforming yet.
Yep.
So, if it's not accurate. So it would be nice to say this was conforming as to everything except zoning district before we approve the conditional use from that perspective too. But on the other hand, the house capacity is adequate for 100 sites. Cannot be more than 100 sites, can't be any transient sites based on this. It would be nice if there were a few transient sites around there, but I can understand his point.
That was my concern too, because there's a lot of need for overnight or weekend camping besides just seasonal camping coming through. Otherwise, they have no place to stay coming through, and then they just keep on going to other counties.
What I noticed is that Brent did size his campground at 45 gallons a site, which is plenty for transit sites. That's the hookup number. You know, there are campgrounds out there that are only shower houses and stuff, and they can use a lower loading rate, so it's more than adequate. Brent, how would you feel about us postponing this a month to sort some of this stuff out? Is that gonna mess you up much?
I'm trying to get, everything kind of lined up for next year for, it does make a difference to me. I have a list of people that want to be seasonals for next year. So if it's put off another month, or, if I got to go to the town board first and then after, maybe 2 months, it would.
Well, I think starting right now, I think we could probably put it all back on the agenda next month and be done with it next month by the middle of third week in September, probably. But I'm leaning kind of that way, just to resolve these final issues, not to create more nonconformity or any technical violation with access or anything before we proceed, just to have the slate clean.
My seasonal have to decide by September 15th whether they want to be there the following year or not. And if they put off until then,
Well, we could.
But your new ones wouldn't be under that condition.
But I have people that are waiting to decide, or to see whether they can be seasonals next year, the 25 sites.
Oh.
And if I can't answer them, they're gonna go somewhere else. If I say, well, I don't know yet whether I'm gonna be 100% seasonal next year, they're gonna go somewhere else.
Someone clarify for me, are the wetlands potentially an issue or not? Felt like we discussed two different things. It's like, under the current, do we need to know developable acres?
I think the wetlands have been delineated from the perspective of there are not any campsites in the wetlands or anything like that. And Jason can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when we approved this originally, the density was 10 per acre, not 5. So there was plenty of room. So the only thing we're looking at is if we were going to rezone to the new district, we would want to be sure that we were going to rezone a campground that had enough acreage to be compliant under the new standard. That wouldn't mean changing any sites or moving any sites, because we already are confident they're not in wetland or anything. It's just a density issue of what's developable and what isn't, right?
And that information we don't have right now.
We have that, we did that information already.
So, since I'm coming back in for another conditional use, I go under I'm still under the 10?
No, you're under the 10 now,
Okay.
and all we're talking about doing today really is changing status of 25 of those sites, or maybe 20 of them, and you keep 5 transient. That's what Chuck and I are kidding about, but maybe amending it a little bit to knock that back slightly. But then if you go through the rezoning process, you would have the capacity to expand in the future too, or add some more transit sites somewhere else, you know what I'm getting at? So we can have it kind of both ways, but it's just how we get to that point, right? So, but I do think we could, it's what, in my opinion, go the conditional use today and keep twisting your arms to rezone anyway, right?
I would still like to see at least a couple of transit sites.
Okay. We're willing to knock it back to 5 transit sites left for now?
Funny, C-zone.
A lot of the point of this too is, you know, it's less, we haven't seen come in every weekend, they, you know, I gotta be there on Friday to make sure, and I'm there all the time pretty much anyway, I live right there, but, you know, make sure they're backing into the right side, and they call me and don't remember what side.
I see his point.
No, I know his
Well,
point,
okay.
but we still need some overnight.
I mean, it's a huge hassle.
We've heard this before from other campgrounds, and we've let them do it. We're just,
Right, and, a lot of the weekend people, you know,
They don't take care of their,
you know.
they leave their trash.
What's that?
They leave their trash, they just pull out when they leave.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and then I gotta go back and pick up after them, where a seasonal, it's kinda like their little chunk of land, you know, and they, you know, they'll plant flowers or, you know, take care of it.
well, are you, how about this? You're willing to accept the condition of pursuing rezoning it in the future if we approve what you want today?
Yeah.
I mean, again, we're not holding a gun to your head, but I think you see there is some benefit here.
What you say means a lot to me, I mean, I've asked for your advice, quite a few times.
Okay, I'd make a motion at this point to approve the transition of the 25 sites to seasonal, from transitory to seasonal sites. And that the committee will consider rezoning this property to residential, recreational, residential, commercial, or recreational, residential, recreational, commercial, at a future committee meeting, if Brent has decided it's a good idea for him to do that. For now, I understand where you're going with it, and I think we can do that.
And what about the staff recommendation?
Right. Oh, good. Sorry about that. We should read through those.
So it's conditional.
Mhm.
You want me to read them?
Yeah, I lost my spot here.
There's 6. 1, all conditions from CUP 18-16 are still required. 2, complete campground map needs to be completed for the entire parcel, including existing sites, and filed with the Land Services Department, signed by a licensed architect, engineer, or surveyor, which shows the campground layout, location of all sites, roads, property lines, setback structures, water supplies, private waste disposal system, recreation areas, and any other information in the Land Use and Information Committee shall deem necessary by October 31st, 2023. Any proposed changes in the approved campgrounds shall be presented to the Land Services Department for approval. No implementation of the proposed changes shall take place until written approval is received from the Land Services Department. 3, all sites to be connected properly to the sanitary system. 4, land use permits to be obtained by May 1st, 2023 for sites that don't have permits. 5, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity. And 6, must provide a copy of the state permit to the county within 9 months of this approval.
And I guess I would add 7, that the applicant and the county will pursue a rezoning to residential, recreational, commercial in the future to bring the property into total compliance. Okay?
Do we need to address the screening?
Well, we have screening language, I believe, didn't we, in our 2018-16?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember what it
We
said.
just need to implement that. I don't remember if we put how many trees, how far apart, but.
I don't think it was that specific. I think it was kind of leave it alone, if I remember correctly. Find it here real quick.
It has been brought up.
Said, screening is needed along the portion of State Road 77 along the proposed north property line of natural vegetation shall be left untouched within 50 feet of all property lines. So there was no specific.
No specific density?
Just said, leave it untouched. Well, if nothing grows there, I guess nothing's gonna grow, so.
Brent?
I did plant a bunch of red pine there last year. And a lot of the grass I planted died.
Yeah.
Even after being watered.
It was the drought, yeah.
It was rough.
Well, I'd say give it another go.
Right.
If it starts raining. Right now, it isn't gonna be helpful to do it either. We can leave that condition, if you leave it alone long enough, it would be forest, but I mean, move it along, I think your intentions are sound. It's to the benefit of your campers to have screening too.
Town was concerned about it because of the traffic coming in and it being as you're coming down 77, you might be distracted by fire pits, campers.
Yeah, I think if we could get, red pines will grow pretty fast, we can get them in there.
Heard the motion by Mr. Conroy, including the 7 considerations. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Hayden. A roll call vote. Ms. Mullen,
I approve.
Mr. Blomberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, yes. Conditional use permit CP 2209 has been approved. Hope to see you another time, Rick. Moving on, next is conditional use permit 2-10. Taylor Business and Rest. Applicant here?
I'm here.
Okay. Claim your application.
Jasper, I'm still,
Can you, I think you cut out there for a minute.
Go ahead and explain your application.
Hello?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Brenna Frost. I moved to Burnett County about a year ago. And I've been in the tailoring business, not been since I'm with the, also noticed that I haven't tailored it. So between that and with the way our house is set up, our property right on the highway, having a lot of space, we thought it would be ideal for me to set up my business at home. I also noticed the potential concern was the lack of lock and chain on our septic tank. On the covers, had in took care of that already. So it would not be an issue moving forward.
Do you have any questions?
It's pretty straightforward.
Gonna generate a whole.
It's not good. Significant feedback.
Not quite.
Something.
Public comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at this
Town of
time.
Siren was okay with this one?
We don't have a chance to meet with the people involved here, not have a, so that's.
Sounds pretty innocuous, but
There any comments? There are staff recommendations. One was the lock screen installed. She said it's already been done. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah.
Follow all sign requirements, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for the activity. Is there a motion for this CUP 22-?
I'll make that we approve that, up, 22-10.
Motion by Mr. Payton.
With the staff recommendation.
There's a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blomberg. Roll call vote. Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Conditional use permit 22-10 has been approved, and you'll be notified from the Land Use Services Office. Thank you. Next is conditional use permit CUP 22-12, Hendrickson, modify existing marina.
I'm Douglas Crane from North Country Surveying. Mike Hendrickson has asked me to represent him on this, for this CUP application today. Mike operates Big Mike's Sports Shop on this particular property. His house is also there. There's a warehouse there. And then he's operated the 20-unit marina ever since 1996 under the proper conditional use permit. He would like to take, what did I have on that? He would like to create a new 250-foot wide, 1.27 acre lot east of the warehouse and divide that off from the property. So the marina would now reside on a 3.5 acre parcel instead of a 4.8 parcel, but it's on the total opposite side if you have the sketch that I prepared. The marina is all located along the channel of the river and around the corner, and then the 250-foot lot is completely away on from that on the other side of the property. The request is to amend the existing CUP to allow the base parcel to be reduced in size from 4.8 down to 3.5. As far as the shore, there would still be over 800 feet of shoreline on his house and shop parcel, and the new lot, 250 wide, would have 260 feet of frontage. This is Mike right here. He may have something to add.
All I can say is I've lived there all my life, just because of the, one thing, we were gonna build over there and sell our house. I've been in it for 66 years, I think we're just gonna stay in our house. We've, worked very heavily with the St. Croix tribe as far as putting in, fish structures off of our shoreline, and none of this would be over where that lot is. They're a structure, they tie to our shoreline, they go out with logs, and they're what they call fish structures, and they put them in over the past 15 years, and they just kind of hold structure in place along there on our shoreline. Our total shoreline, the whole thing is totally natural. We have no viewing area like is allowed. What we've done is leave the whole thing natural, and we just had a couple guys from DNR there year before last, and they took a bunch of pictures, and they said, this is what a marina is supposed to look like, not like Lake Minnetonka. And, so they thought it was kind of weird. They said, you got allowed a 30-foot viewing area for like 150 feet or whatever. We had up your entrance to your dock, and between all of them, you have a total of 28 feet for the whole acreage. The thing is, we have our people that are docking with us are mostly senior citizens and well into senior citizens. We have a lot of them, we've got the dock set so they can park within 6 foot of the dock. They don't have to walk across the parking lot or down a ramp. We have one guy, he brings his wife in a wheelchair. We have about 5 or 6 of them use walkers. It's just unbelievable. When you look there, it's like senior citizens at the lake. But we just decided we'd probably like to do this just for down the road that we're getting over, and we're just thinking that might be a nice setup. It's a partial mudded front as far on the bottom, and the other is solid sand. And again, all these DNR things or these private things we put in are all on our side of that. So that's about all I got to say about it.
Is there any questions for the applicant?
No, none of the docks should be moved or anything, they're
No,
already out of
all
there.
way on the other side. Yeah, we decided to go in the dock, in the channel with the docks, because that would keep the wind at, there's a no wake zone, so it'll be minimal damage to the, from the wind or from, big traffic of boats. I mean, they go through there, but they gotta go slow.
And you've got plenty of frontage to maintain the same number of slips. That's the single biggest issue.
Yeah, it was funny, you know, because we actually didn't go up where we could have went when we originally got the permit. I think, Jim Flanagan filled that out for us. But we thought that was enough without screwing anything up on the lake shore.
Yeah, I grabbed an old aerial that shows where the docks are located on it, and that's not available on the county's website, because that's all leaf off, if anybody's interested in how the configuration is of the top.
I've been to it, or by it enough to know, I think, so.
Yeah.
So not reducing the shoreline will not affect the number of slips then?
Correct.
There could be a lot more slips than there is now, but there's not, so it's maintains, what would be the word, compliance with chapter 30.
So he's just making an empty lot out of it.
Any other questions? The only comment we got was from DOT.
Correct. We had concerned about,
Access.
4 access points, parcel off this lot, we need to circulate an internal shared access point or something, was their comment.
And the plan is that we'll use the most eastern access point that goes into the warehouse, and then we'll have an easement along the right of way to access east over to the new lot.
It just won't have its own access point. It just won't have its own separate new access point.
Correct.
Which is fine.
We're not asking for that, we don't need it.
Because the corner of the road there, they come around that like nuts coming from the east. This would get them a little bit farther away from that corner. This is to be more safe, we thought, and plus most people, the thing is with that lot, you're looking at 2 lakes. You're looking at Little Clam, and it has a wayside across the road there, which is not gonna be developed into a house or anything. And then you look to the south, you have 3 miles of lake to look at. So we felt that was probably
There's no problem. All DOT was saying no more access.
Right.
No additional,
We don't need it.
You knew that anyway, I know.
Correct, yeah, that was all planned before anybody brought it up.
Are there any public, I'll open public comment period. Are there any public comments?
Don Hamilton, 7158 South Devils Lake Drive. I support this CUP and would encourage the committee to give this applicant favorable consideration. I think it's a nice looking spot there, and I think he's done his very best to not only do what he can do there, but comply and make sure the environment's taken care of. So I applaud this applicant for his diligence and would support a committee recommendation to approve this cup. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Committee have any questions or concerns? Someone wish to make a motion?
Move that we approve this cup with the.
Motion by Mr. Anderson.
With the staff recommendations, there are 6 of them. 5. 5 of them?
I can read them. Two-lot certified survey map will be required to split this parcel. 2, sanitary system evaluation form to be submitted to the county by November 1st, 2022 for the existing sanitary system. 3, obtain proper permit approval for driveway access on the State Highway 70 from this new easterly parcel. 4, follow all sign requirements. And 5, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity. The motion include those recommendations?
The motion is on, I'll second.
Motion is seconded. Roll call vote. Ms. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg?
Yes.
Ms. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Payton?
Yes.
Mr. Conroy?
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes. Initial use permit 22-12 has been approved. Will be notified by the Land Use Services. Right?
Yep, we'll send you a letter. Yep.
Next one is conditional use permit CUP 1806, Metal, ABA St. Croix Pines Campground LLC. Is the applicant here, please?
Yes, the applicant, Paul Canetto's here, and I'm Ryan Benson from the Benson Law Office. He asked me to assist him today.
Thank you. Go ahead and explain the application.
Thank you. And so basically where we're at is Mr. Canetto was approved back in 2018 under the old rules for his campground. He then, as he was lining up to get a lot of work done this spring, he had lined up to get all the septic and the electric put in, or the plumbing, I should say, well, and the electric put in. Once the road restrictions were to expire, then he received an email from Land Services telling him that his conditional use permit had expired, and stating that there was a condition that it had to be completed within 3 years. And so obviously he could not pursue the rest of the $100,000 of work he was going to put in until we got some clarification on this issue. There's nothing in the actual conditional use permit that provided any sort of 3-year requirement in it. It appeared Land Services was identifying something stated in his application, which was then not put into the actual conditional use permit. And I would note in the application, Mr. Canetto was told to put that 3-year time period in there by former Land Services employee Shane Buchholz, even though Mr. Canetto had told him that this was going to be a long process because he's got a full-time job and he's doing a lot of this work himself. And so we're here for a review hearing because we want to see this conditional use permit just continue to be extended so he can continue with his work under the old campground rules. I would note there's some things noted in the staff report we wanted to address, specifically that there's no sanitary system installed for the shower house structure, and that would be because the only thing in there right now is a floor drain, but that's something that was going to be installed as we move forward here. no complete and signed campground map was submitted within 3 years as required by the conditional use permit. With that, Mr. Knettel filed, an initial map with Land Services in August of 2018 and received an email back from Shane Buchholz indicating that, Paul, I spoke to Jason and he is satisfied with it. At this point, when the drain field, well, and shower house are added, please update the map to reflect those changes. Well, those were the things that were gonna be added this spring, and so the map would have been updated after that. But then there has also been submitted the actual maps laying out the entire, plan for this, as well. So that's been submitted to Land Services as part of the permitting process here. And then there's also reference made to, no state campground permit submitted within the county within 9 months as required. Mr. Knettel did file for a campground permit, but he received a letter back from the Department of Agricultural on October 17, 2018, telling him he was basically putting the cart in front of the horse here. As I said, you can't get a permit yet if you actually have your work done out there. And so they would not give him a permit back in 2018, and they said, come back and see us once you have this work done so we can review it on site when this is completed. So as far as Mr. Knettel's concerned, he thought he was working in accordance with the conditional use permit and had received communications back regarding that the map he had submitted at the time was fine for now. And I will obviously leave it up to corporate counsel to advise the board as to this 3-year time limit. I know I've had conversations with Attorney Grindell, and he knows what my opinion is on it. But Mr. Knettel really would just like to be able to continue moving forward with his conditional use permit that was approved in 2018 without fear that it's going to be pulled out from under him and spend any more money on this. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'd just like to say, like on my application, Shane scribbled out that I was gonna get started in 3 years, and I've got it right there. And he wrote in there that it would be completed in 3 years, so I called him. And, unfortunately, he doesn't work here anymore. But, he's like, well, they just want something written in there to give them an idea. And I pretty much told him, my wife said my youngest daughter has to graduate from high school before I can run this campground. So I knew this wasn't gonna get done. In an email, and I can't print it off, but I don't know. He helped me through a lot of this stuff, but nice if he was here right now, but he's not, so.
Any questions?
I guess you've been the owner all along throughout the whole entire process, right? Just a curiosity, but there was a kind of a LLC created and then dissolved in that period. That has any effect on it at all, but it was kind of.
Yeah, I guess so it costs $25 a year to renew that. Yeah, I don't know, I guess I didn't know you could get in trouble from Burnett County for not renewing that. Before I got the letter from Jason saying I did that, it dissolved. I've been working with a lady in Madison, and it's $175.
I only ask because I don't know that it matters. It runs with the property, not with the person anyway. But it made it look like something had happened, that made me wonder if there was someone had passed away or something. There are perhaps extenuating circumstances just from the fact that everything was kind of shut down in that period of, supply chain and getting work done and other things, but it doesn't sound like that really is what the case was.
And I think the property's always been owned by Paul Knettel individually, so the LLC is not the owner of the property. Is that correct? Or?
LLC owns the property.
The LLC, the owner.
That's probably right.
All right, so all it would take was reinstating it with the, if you don't file $40 fee. It is now, after 2 years, they administratively dissolve you. So that's what I'm assuming happened. He didn't get the postcard and go online and pay his $40.
It just threw another smoke screen in there as to what went on. That's what I was wondering about. So I guess what it boils down to is the 3-year time limit we like to see things get complete. And you understand that's just so that an approval doesn't go along for 20 years and all of a sudden, when things have changed radically, somebody starts doing something no one is aware of. That was some guidance we got many years ago in zoning from DNR attorney and DOJ attorneys about that it is okay to put a sunset on approvals. You know, the question we need to talk to Corp Council about perhaps is that as it was constructed, was it an enforceable condition or was it more of a guideline? And that's what I would want to ask Dave.
I guess my question would be, does it matter on the application? I mean, is it the LLC then that needs to, I mean, I know it goes with the land, but like what should actually appear on the application? I mean, just so all the ducks are in a row. I mean, is it an LLC that at this point doesn't exist but will again, or?
It's been administratively dissolved, requires paying some additional money to the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions and filling out a piece of paper to reinstate it.
I don't know how that works. Does the LLC file, or does the individual file, or does that even matter?
Well, it's one of the same. I did it 3 weeks ago. So I think what the lady does there, she must pull it up on the computer and make sure nobody else uses that name. You know, you don't want 2 of them. And yeah, she filled the form and I filled it out, checked for $175 and sent it back.
One of the ones they don't let you do online, so it has to be done via the mail, so it takes a little more time.
Not back yet.
Not back yet.
So are there any other changes that you'd like to make to this CUP? Or are you just saying, hey, I'd like to renew it?
Well, when I got the email, I didn't want to start all over and have every neighbor within 10 miles come in and complain about bears getting in the trash and everything I went through the first time. Now, I mean, I read the newspaper, I know what's going on. Nobody likes campgrounds out here anymore. No, I know, but it's just, they're getting too compact around lakes, and I get it. 70-year-old people don't like a razor flying around the corner when their grandkids out in the yard and dust everywhere. I just didn't want to go through the application process again.
But you're not looking at expanding off over 56. You're just wanting the same
39
size.
right now.
Yeah.
You're not seeking an expansion or any change to what was approved. And that's,
correct.
So we would not be able to do that with the zoning as it is. Your approval is now a legal non-conforming use if it continues, but it's not able to be rezoned, I think, in all likelihood either. So that's the other aspect.
So, right, so all we're looking for is just a continuation of the current conditional use permit.
You have made some inroads in there through driveways.
Well, I met with Lincoln Township. We met out there, I forgot the guy's name, it's written down somewhere. He told me we moved a approach that was off of Welch Road, which they never really liked because somebody can blow a stop sign and fly right through. So we moved that over. He recommended that, and we got 2 culverts in there. I think they're 28 feet long, so they're plenty long for a trailer to get in and out. This is all just as I save up money. I mean, I could have went and borrowed $500,000 and paid some campground manager to run it, but that's not really what I wanted to do. So with kids in college and 18-year-old kid finishing out school, I just working as I go, and the shower house is done. Well, not done, it's built.
That's what I mean, you have done some things in there, and at least got it started and showing an interest that, hey, I still wanna do this, I'm not just.
Yeah, and I guess if I had to do it over again, I'd pick a 10 below day in January and drive up here and say, hey, I'm still doing this, is there anything you need from me? I don't know. This LLC thing, it's embarrassing that I let it run out, but I've let it run out on my garage door business in Royalton, Minnesota. I mean, it's like a DOT, it's like your health card for DOT. You just, oh, that's 2 years old. I bet a state trooper's not gonna like that. I mean, you just.
The feeling.
Yeah, so it's embarrassing. Yeah, we've gotta get a calendar, and June 1st every year, renew the LLC, I guess, if I don't get the postcard.
If we review this, Jason, is there a time period that he's, gonna be operational, or?
For you guys to decide.
I'm shooting for May 1st, 2024. And in the letter, I think yesterday that was sent, it says the septic would be completed, well, no, it was from 2 weeks ago. The septic would be completed by November 1st, 2022. So I called Jim at Hopkins Sand and Gravel, and he said, the next step, hopefully after today, is to get a surveyor out there to put pins in the ground off of that map. And then from there, they would get started. And he said, it all depends on the weather. 4 months of nice weather left, so I think he's confident. He's got more room in his schedule right now than he did when road restrictions came off. I know that. So he was actually a bit relieved that this maybe got pushed off a little bit. So that's my plan. I don't know. Let's just say something wouldn't work out.
Deborah want to add something?
Go ahead, Ms. Mullin.
My question is, just for clarity, in one part of the document it says 56 units, but the sketch with the actual units included in it that shows 39. So is it 39 or is it 56?
That's 39.
So it was approved for 56, but he's only, putting in 39 at this time.
But he could go to 56.
Right.
You'd want to retain.
Well, I wouldn't, the reason we came up with 39 was one, because of the layout where I wanted this, and the other was, septic designer said, maybe start with this, see how it goes, and worry about expansion later. I mean, you don't want to put in a 100-unit septic system and only have 39 sites cost. So that's how we came up with the 39.
That's not unusual.
Thank you.
The applicant.
I was just gonna say, so, stuff happens the way it should happen, May 1st, 2024. What happens if it's August 1st, 2024 because of something? I mean, I don't know,
COVID hits again.
Yeah, well, anything, I mean,
monkeypox.
There's no other questions of the applicant. I'll open the public hearing. Is there any public comments?
Just to reiterate, we were contacted by Jim Hopkins and had Keystoner's septic plan for the whole site, and we're asked to get it ready to stake out. We're getting in the process. It was busy this spring, everything was kind of getting delayed, and then we got contacted about 2 weeks later saying, put it on hold because of the question with the application. So I know the sewer plans are all designed, and we were ready to stake it. It was in progress, or looking to be in progress.
Any other public comments?
Washington, Town Chairman, Town Lincoln. Corey Jackson, Supervisor, Town Lincoln. We are probably, all we're trying to do is get our point across or get our opinion. In regard to this was approved years ago or whatever. And I'm sure we got an email saying that this was gonna happen, but somehow it was overseen or something. We didn't even know about this till after. And we got a ton of complaints from residents regarding the camp. Anyway, since that time, we've had a special meeting regarding this. We have genuine concerns. Our residents in our town, they completed a survey before we did our comprehensive plan. And in their opinion, the biggest thing was the peace and quiet of Lincoln Township. We have no lakes. Very, very limited township. And that's what they love about it. And that was the number one thing. And since then, anyway, we've had meetings. We actually addressed campgrounds in our township and came to the conclusion that we do not want campgrounds. Obviously, this is a mistake, it was done before, but, did a letter to Jason regarding the fact. At the time, we did talk about it, and said that this permit had not been solved. We saw this on the agenda, we came here to express our how Lincoln's not in favor of campgrounds. So we don't have it in our comprehensive plan, but that is something that we are, as we revisit our comprehensive plan. So, other than that about covers it, I guess. Trying to see a permit without having input. Are upset.
But the town was notified prior to the original CUP.
I'm quite certain of that, Norm, but I mean, like I said, the ball was dropped. We probably got an email, and, you get up voting, and, there's a little paragraph, something about the Lincoln Township, it was just missed. That's what I'm assuming. That's the only thing I could say.
So whatever it's worth, Steve, we've made a recommendation to modify our noticing because of this issue with, the towns get the notices sometimes before where they can't put it on a meeting till after we meet. And historically, because this is back in 2018, earlier before some of the campground issues got to be so contentious, but, sometimes if the clerk would get it and it might not, because it was already done before it could have gone on your agenda, it never gets on. We're moving for henceforth a 2-week greater window for towns to respond, but that's a recent decision. It wasn't that big of an issue, in 2018. I wasn't here for this particular one. I was swapping out a knee, so I don't have a lot of memory of it, but that's happened before, happened to Jackson all the time. But the clerk simply not notifying the town board because it was already a done deal, she thought. So it's kind of adding to what may have happened then. But the issue before us is this is what's approved. We just have to determine if it's still alive or not.
Yeah, we understand that. That's, right, it has been approved once. And we're just here we want to come before the committee just to express our concerns, our feelings for our town. And that's it, that we choose not to have campers. That's all we have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Like Craig said, we've had the issues with other townships. We have our meeting, on the first Tuesday. Well, a lot of townships, don't meet until after that. So we've set up, and I don't know when we're gonna change it, Jason.
First of the year.
First of the year, we change it. We're gonna move the application back 2 weeks. so that we can get a notice out to the towns prior to their town meetings. And hopefully we'll get more, feedback from the towns. There's very few of them that give feedback. Town of Siren is one that they're very good at giving feedback. Town of Jackson is. So we're hoping that, you know, we get the towns involved with the same stuff that we're involved with. So thank you for your comments. So, any other public comments?
Morning, Don Hamilton, South Devils Lake Drive. I don't know much about this, but this is clearly a mess, and it's unfortunate the applicant was unaware, uneducated, and unsure of what he needed to do. But for the record, I'd like to point out that it was his responsibility. In his cup, it says you need to comply with all local, county, and state requirements, and that includes Chapter 30 of the Burnett County Land Use Code. And that says that if you cease to operate after 12 months, your cup is dissolved. The mechanism to allow you 3 years to build your business was in your cup. That allows you to not have to comply with that 12-month requirement, as I understand the process. The code is clear, and I believe it applies to everyone. I understand there's people that have dropped the ball on both ends, but regardless of what was said, I hope in closed session you will find what is the legal mechanism to extend a cup. I don't believe there is one. They do time out if you don't take action. This would be a new cup, not an extension of a cup. I don't know how we get there. The applicant has a path forward to yes. He could rezone the parcel to RC. He could work with the town, start over, and then the town would be able to defend the people who are against campgrounds by saying, this is a new zoning district intended to have and support campgrounds. There is a path to yes. The applicant is well aware that the rules for campgrounds have changed, and he readily admits his request here today is solely to avoid public scrutiny and long and contentious hearings. I get that. I understand that. But there is a path forward for this applicant. And I think in the best interest of all parties that we start over. The cup is timed out. It should be, it's gone, in my opinion. I think if you remove all the emotion and stand on the Burnett County Code, at the end of the day, let the code prevail, and let's hit a reset button, start over, and let's get this gentleman the campground that he desires that meets the favor of the town of Lincoln. I appreciate the time, but I do not think we should reward noncompliance, inaction, because there's a lot of campground owners that come in here every month. I'm here every month, and they do what they're supposed to do. They meet their expectations. And I think to be fair to those people who comply with the rules and comply with the code, I don't think giving a kitchen pass to this applicant is fair to them. I'm not a campground owner, but I don't think that's fair at all. I think we all should adhere to the code, and I would encourage the committee to maybe just stand on the reg and remove the emotion. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Any other public comments? Any other public comments?
I would just like to respond if I could.
Sure.
As it relates to the town of Lincoln, and their desire not to have a campground to keep peace and quiet, I personally know of at least 2 of my clients who have developed well more than 40 lots in the town of Lincoln and sold them off just this year alone for people who are putting campers on there and having ATVs and everything. So just discriminating against the campground, I don't think is appropriate, because other property owners are doing it, just not as a campground. They're dividing their 40 acres into smaller lots and selling them off. As it relates to Mr. Hamilton, obviously we would argue that Mr. Knettel has not dropped the ball. There is no 3-year requirement in his conditional use permit, nor is there in the Burnett County Code when his conditional use permit was adopted. He has not been sitting in action. He has slowly been working on the campground, and as he stated, he'll have that up and going hopefully by May 1 of 2024.
Any other comments?
He wants to again, I would just like to respond to that. The town is aware of what's going on. There is a lot of land sales, there is, and we're concerned about that too. It's like, I've given all up or gone through the driveway process with a lot of these people. And, you know, I just talking to them and I ask them, and they don't have building. Their plan is maybe somewhere way down the line, that they want to bring a camper in there and stay there. And I'm just responding to that comment just because, yes, we are aware of that, and we're not really pay for that either. What do you do?
Any other public comments? Any other public comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Committee, have any questions or comments?
I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to,
I was just gonna say real quick, we did get an email yesterday, and that was forwarded to everybody, from Richard Peterson, neighbor, basically not in favor. That was the only public comment we got, or correspondence we got.
of course, Dave, would it be appropriate for you to address the discussion you've had with Attorney Ryan and about all this stuff?
Well, we could to some degree, sure. Basically, the issue that is whether or not there was a 3-year time limit on the conditional use permit. There's no doubt there was on the application, there was a statement that it would be completed in years. There is in our ordinance a sunset if a conditional use permit is not used or developed or whatever for a period of 12 months, it's no longer valid. I think Supervisor Anderson's questions relative to the work that has been done, I mean, this hasn't just sat vacant for 3 or 4 years. He has been working on it, so it wasn't abandoned as our ordinance talks about. And whether it was our fault or it was intentional, I'm not sure, but if I were to go to court and try to defend that the permit expired, we're not gonna go back and look at the application. We're gonna be looking at what the permit actually says, and there is no sunset, 3-year sunset on that permit. You know, a lot of times you put those on where you say, okay, someone's going to bring a camper in, they have to hook to a sewer, and they're gonna build a house, and it has to be done within a certain amount of time or that permit expires. That wasn't done. He hasn't abandoned it, as justified. He has developed and spent money on it. He would have, maybe would have, I don't know. He says he would have continued, but for this issue.
Hey, can I weigh in real quick? Well, Dave knows we disagree on this point.
Yeah, we've had a contentious debate on it.
So, I disagree with that opinion. I'm not an attorney, so, you know, I go by what Dave says, but, I don't think the argument that's saying anything in your application doesn't apply if it's not written in the letter, the approval letter, doesn't make sense to me. So I could write all sorts of things in the application and all that stuff is out the window, it's not in the approval letter. And maybe that's why those other counties do that approval at the second month, because then I guess we could go through the audios of every meeting and write down everything, like if the owner said, I'm not gonna allow people to have fires after 10 p.m., we would literally have to write down every single thing that was said on the application or the public hearing and make that part of the approval underneath that argument. And, you know, I just don't agree with that, but I'm not an attorney, so that's my speech.
As Jason said, we've gone round and round on this, but the difference between, as Jason said, well, when we go to court on writ of certiorari, the court looks at the entire record. That's not what we'd be doing here. We'd be going to court to enforce the conditions of our permit. Lack of street or something else, like if he develops more than the number of campsites, that's in the permit that I could go say, Judge, he violated these terms. This is not in there. Now, yeah, it may be more cumbersome, but I think that is part of your motion, that you're gonna say, okay, we're gonna have, you adopt his recommendations, you adopt the state and local regulations. Those are all conditions. Going by the request, there's no sense to do that. You just say approve.
Right, well, I'm aware of that because I've been in the crossfire of this a little bit myself, but I've been at this long enough to remember when we did not set these kind of limits on development because of that, but typically done fairly quickly, but it started to become an issue when some cases happened where a 20-year-old approval suddenly was implemented and the reality on the ground had changed radically. And so that was the point. But I get that where we prevailed when we've been in litigation on these sort of things has been when they were enumerated from comments in a public hearing and were added in as conditions on, live as part of the approval process at the committee level. I think we're bulletproof then. I'm not sure we're bulletproof now if this was be debated. And my concern is I don't want to see the work that we did in trying to get a handle on camping and campgrounds in any way impacted by having to litigate over whether this is or isn't a valid permit and is or isn't grandfathered in. That is of concern to me. That's why I'm sort of walking the tightrope on both. I'm on for and against both sides of this issue, right?
And we did win a case, and it actually was appealed, and we did win the case where campground only developed part of what was approved. And basically, we argued, the committee indicated to them, no, you've abandoned the rest of that by not opening it. Or I can't remember, it was quite a few years. They were going to say, well, we had a permit to do this 20 years ago, let's say. And the committee said, no, you have not developed that, you've abandoned that, and the court upheld that. And we did go up on appeal on that. That's not the case here. It has done work.
This case appears it never actually did operate.
No, you never operated it, but he hasn't abandoned it.
Did not the point of operation, but did not do it within the 3 years we had put out as part of our application, but never made a condition of the conditional use. I kind of get that argument. I would hate to have to try to defend it in court. I get that.
Question I have is, did he meet the other, is it potentially just not, are there other requirements he didn't meet? Like was the, map completed within 3 years? Were these other requirements that needed to be upheld, were those all completed within the 3 years? Because is it negated for other reasons?
Yeah, that's the thing is are there circumstances that would have had we not made it so that you could not renew this, or could not, let me rephrase that, could not reapply for this in the zoning district where it is now. Had this still been an option in our R3, would we even blink about renewing it? Probably not. That's the other element here.
My understanding that those conditions were met or attempted to be met and were outside of his ability. For instance, the map was applied for and the state said, no, you have to have campground done before you can actually get the map done. That type of stuff. That's my understanding. If there's other bases that were in the permit that have not been met, that's a completely different issue than what we're talking about.
Well, it just says like the campground map needs to be completed.
So they submitted a campground map.
Okay.
I guess you'd call it a preliminary map. It wasn't signed by anyone. So I guess you could say they kind of half complied with it, I would probably argue. Now, I guess I would say sanitary system needs to be installed for the existing structures by 6/1/2018. I think we could say that they did not meet that requirement. That's one.
It says, or fixtures be removed, which they were. It was a bathroom vanity and a kitchen sink with a bucket underneath it.
Do we have a map?
The map was created by SEH, which has offices in Wisconsin. My brother works at the one in St. Cloud, Minnesota. The map is,
Do we have that map?
yes,
No, in our packet.
If it's in your packet. Well, it's in our permit records. I just don't know if it's in all the paperwork you guys received.
Okay.
I don't print off every single
Yep.
piece of correspondence for the packet. I don't think it's in what you guys have. I can pull it up though. We do have it.
Yeah, so there was a map.
Yeah, we
that was
just-
submitted within the 3 years.
It just wasn't signed by anyone.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yes. I'm remembering right, a lot of our CUPs were, one of the conditions was you had to at least put effort into, for instance, if they were gonna build a house, put a camper in, build a house, they had to at least have it started and maybe not completed in the end of that 3 years, but they had to show due diligence of putting like the footings in. Didn't you say that back?
Well, that's what you did when you guys reviewed conditional use permits for the 3-year campers. The intent was you wanted people to,
At least start them.
yeah, and the ones that didn't, they would come back and reapply again for another 3 years.
So, kind of the same thing we're talking about here.
To an extent, and that's what I'm trying to get my head around is did he do enough to say he's in compliance in part and we can let him finish? You know, or do we, you know, at what point do we say that wasn't enough done to qualify to be underway? It seems to me that we're pretty close. There's some things didn't happen that should have happened, but not everybody understands the nuances of the regulations as well as they should.
If you're referring to a map, there is one on page 87 that shows the 39 campsites, the existing building, the shower house, and the road.
Yeah, on a photo, right?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
down there.
Shows exhibit 1 in the lower right-hand corner.
That was August of 18.
Yes, exhibit number 1.
That was done in August of 2018.
And then on page 76 is a sketch.
Right, right.
But I don't see a date on that at all, unless it's part of the, what he faxed from Somerset Public Library, February 28th of 18.
That map is part of was the CUP application. Yeah.
Okay.
That sketch, the one that's not on the aerial photo.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
My only comment is my concern with, you know, I would suggest we put a time limit on how long we'll leave it open if we're able to, so that their neighbors know what's happening in their neighborhood. And so that this doesn't happen again. Or should anything change in the area, that could cause problems with this being put in because something else was approved for somebody else nearby. Does that make sense? What's going to prevent another campground from going in on the next mile, because this one hasn't been started?
Well, I would answer that and say we wouldn't accept their application for membership. So
Yeah, we don't have any other campgrounds, that I can recall in the town of Lincoln, that have any active or past conditional use permits.
Right, we have a one that never got licensed off of D, that's a very small family campground, but it's not a campground anymore. And I think it's in forestry and probably could be, but, you know, that's another matter altogether. But that was prior to Lincoln adopting zoning, and it probably had something to do with Lincoln adopting zoning, right?
Remember that?
That's the one down by right across from Amsterdam Slough's Wildlife Area.
Yes, I do remember this.
Yep, there you go. But, you know, like, so it isn't a scenario that could repeat. It's a case of, you know, how much did he do? I would have been a lot more concerned if he had opened and had campers there and still didn't have a sewer. That would be a violation, that would be a serious violation. That he never did bring anybody in there to camp because he wasn't done yet this is a, you know, a hard one in a way, because had we not amended the ordinance, it would be just there would be a achievable route to approval. The fact that it requires a rezoning, if the town of Lincoln doesn't want any campgrounds out there, there won't be a rezoning and there won't be a campground out there. So I think that's the reality of the situation. So the question then becomes, did he do enough for us to say, okay, you screwed it up, but you aren't so far in violation that we can't say you're grandfathered as anybody else would be. That's where we're at, in my opinion.
Any other comments from the committee? If we did go ahead and approve a renewal, we could put a sunset on it.
I think we could, yeah. We are allowed to do that.
And if you are considering that, I guess my other thought would be, what, is it 39 or 56? I think that's kind of an open-ended question right now. We have a map that shows 39, we have a map that shows 56.
Would the applicant be open to capping it at 39?
That's all our septic design and water line design allows right now, that's why it's at 39.
You'd have to come back here to the county to get it.
To expand, you'd have to come back.
I would say that if we say that, okay, you showed us 39, we're gonna say you have 39 as of today, then that's, you're capped at 39. There's no expansion because you'd have to rezone to expand. But that seems to me to be a fairly prudent thing, King Solomon-like decision to say, yeah, okay, this, you know, the 56 was speculation, 39 is what you showed us, so 39 it is. I'd be willing to make out a motion that we find that you got progress made substantially on a 39-unit campground. You didn't get it done in the 3-year limit that we had, but there's some confusion about that and some issue as to whether that's an enforceable condition. And in light of that, I would move then that we grant you extension to the date you told us. Give yourself till the 1st of July, 2024. Build in an extra couple months for you. And if you don't get it done by then and completed to the standards of what the zoning ordinance requires, meaning you've got a completed map and your septic is in and you're ready to take on customers. If you're not ready by then it does in fact expire.
Got all that on you.
You're confusing everybody, but there's no doubt, that's a condition of this committee now. No debate of whether it expires on July 1st, 2024.
All the original conditions of the cup.
Yeah, all of the other previous original, we're not granting a new cup, we're just granting an extension of the existing cup, but we're recognizing that it is conforming, it only shows us now 39 sites, and we're gonna stick with that number.
And your motion would include the staff recommendations?
Well, that's what she basically just said, that he's not amending anything that was really in the prior CUP other than 39 and July 1st, 2024, open date.
That's the only thing we're changing. Otherwise, we're just renewing the original.
We're extending this as if we did it when it was still alive. That's what we did. Let me rephrase that, when we all agreed it was still alive.
A motion, is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Roll call vote. Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Hayden,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, yes. The renewal has been approved to July 1st, 2024 for Cup 1806. Okay, next. You will be notified of the conditions.
Yeah, we'll send you a new letter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Land Services Department 2023 budget proposal.
What? Everybody's leaving when all the good stuff's gonna come?
I'm still there, Jason.
All right, Dave, thanks.
We heard you were up, Jason.
Yep, everybody bails. Let me see here what page that is. Oh, I think that, yeah, 88, 89 in your packet there somewhere. So the budget, 2023 budget request is in there. There's no salary stuff in there. They're still working on figuring out, what raise might be approved or whatever is going on. So there is no 2023, salaries, sick, vacation, PTO, Social Security, retirement, all that stuff is not in the budget. So we're essentially just approving the revenue line and then the general expenses for the department. So I put in $250,000 for revenue. That's what we budgeted in 2022. You can see in 2021, we almost had $400,000 in revenue. We're not going to hit that this year in 2022. I think we'll hit probably $300,000. So permits are starting to go down. Interest rates are going up. So, the economy is slowing down or whatever. So 250, I think, was a fair amount to budget for revenue. The expenses, nothing's really changed in there. It's pretty simple. The same amounts as last year. The only slight difference is the depreciable capital equipment. We have to get a new truck next year to replace the 2013 truck. We have 2 trucks for zoning. We pretty much replace each one we make them last 10 years. Every 5 years, we pretty much buy 1 truck.
you probably have good close to 100,000 miles.
There's over 100,000 miles on the 2013. Yep. So that's the only big item change.
You can find it.
If we could find a truck, yeah. We did talk to them and they said, yeah, once your budget's approved, get your request order in pretty quick, because it might be 6 months. I think Land and Water is actually waited over a year for their Dodge truck that I think is almost here from what I've heard.
Would this be a gas-powered truck or?
This would be gas-powered, Nate, if we were gonna look at buying an electric, F-150, and he said not at this time. They're really expensive, I think, and they've only been out for a year, if not even that long, so
No,
this one will still be a gas.
I could see being in a far corner of Blaine and running out of
Yep, running out of battery.
I could see being down in Dewey looking at that sauna.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the budget is pretty normal. couple computers here or there every year that we buy, so,
Those are set by IT.
IT sets which ones we should be buying. Yeah, we still have to budget them in our budget, but yeah, they tell us which ones should be buying. We go on a 5-year rotation for replacing computers in our department. They recommend either 4 or 5-year replacement cycle, 5-year cycle. We don't budget for some of the grant. You'll see there's a grant form in this packet here. We don't budget for that because we don't know what we're gonna get. Right now, a lot of that money is usually being used to offset salaries in the department, so when we get that grant, we roll it back in. That's why, part of the reason why essentially every year we're returning money back to the general fund, because we use some of that grant money to offset our existing costs. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's pretty standard items, other than a truck is really only.
Staff up to par? Number?
No, we have interviews on Friday for that open zoning position, so that's good, yep. I have 2 applicants, not a, big pool, but,
No, but I sure wish it was like this back in the day when we were doing this. We could have got paid more, I think. But no, seriously, those, not everyone holds those. Not everybody's competent to get them.
And the 2 that applied don't have credentials.
They look like they could, I hope.
Yeah, that's what I mean, it would be a condition. I think all the people we've hired in the last 5 years, I don't know if any of them have come with credentials. I think we've all trained them to get the credentials.
The last person that Burnett County hired with credentials was me.
Yeah, probably.
That was a mistake, huh?
Probably, but look at, you're all in, right?
So basically, I just need a motion to approve the budget as submitted.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Mr. Conroy. Second by Mr. Blomberg.
I need to go grab a cup of coffee.
Roll call vote. Ms. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Blomberg?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Anderson is in the restroom, I believe.
Mr. Payton?
Is probably in the restroom.
Mr. Conroy? Mr. Conroy?
Yes.
Bickford? We have a quorum of proven. Okay.
Next is what the zoning and property information division reports. Those are in your packet, I think starting at page about 101 or so. Staff said what they're working on. The budget report is in there. Our revenue year to date is $197,000. Last year at this time was $222,000, so it is going down a little bit. Permit numbers are in there. Our website statistics, again, about 300 users per weekday, about 100 per day on the weekend. We got the countries in there, so India is number 2 for people looking at our GIS website. With 22 users. Looking for campgrounds to stay at, probably. Permit numbers are in there, 64 new dwellings so far this year.
That's ahead of last year.
Yes, it is, yes. It's a pretty high percentage. I mean, 64 new dwellings out of 459, that's what, 15% of the permits?
Yeah. And looking at the sanitary permit numbers, in most years, with the fall flurry that we get, you're gonna be sneaking up on 300, not.
Could be, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yesterday our phone was ringing off the hook, so I mean, it's not like stuff is dropped off a cliff. I mean, people are still doing projects and submitting permits, so.
So I think some people have locked in interest enough in advance, and it's still not terrifying to them, and they're gonna do it anyway, and maybe material costs will drop back down.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll drop back down to what it was, but I did, like OSB the other day, it's down to like $18 a sheet from it used to be 60 a sheet. But years ago, I think it was $8 or $10 a sheet, so it's still not the price that it used to be, but.
Oh, but there again, there was some that, for a while, surplus or not surplus, but, you know, no supply chain issues. And then pandemic effect did a lot of weird stuff that may not settle back down for a long time.
Yep.
Don't really know.
Go into closed session about Mr. Payton.
Well,
You gotta make a motion to go into closed first, you're just discussing. his
Yeah.
report.
so if you guys don't have any questions on the report or anything like I said, yeah, we got interviews on Friday for that vacant position, so.
Good to know. So, okay,
Hey,
Our secretary has just returned, unsecretary.
there he is, okay. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move that we go into the closed session as published for the purposes as shown on the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Conroy,
Second.
second by Mr. Anderson. Ms. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg,
Yeah.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Payton,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes,
Mr. Bickford, yes. Can we shut this thing off?
turn off.
Well, we actually
Yep.
have to go into a breakout room.
Wanda will take care of it here.
No, James is coming because he's got to help us in the break.
Coming in?
We'll just chill out for a minute till
You
we
can,
get all the electronics.
Mute this
set up.
to start with. Oops.
Are the board members there?
Deb, are you still there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Could the person
Could
be in
you
a closed
get
session?
somebody cut off?
Deb, are you still there?
No idea.
Burnett County is not in there.
Is that really closed anymore?
Could ask her if there's anyone else in the room.
Sorry. Yeah. that computer had to join.
Oh, Deb, are you still there?
It's not there yet.
Oh.
Did I lose you? Hello?
Recording in progress.
And then keep going.
I've got a whole bunch on my lake they could move out. It's just an adjournment.
All right, did that all mute it? Yep. Okay, and then the other one? Oh, we should be good.
Yeah, I just lost that.
Yeah, Deb, hung her up. All right, go ahead and finish your meeting.
Okay, we're back in open session. Any action deemed necessary from closed session discussion?
I'll make a motion that after consulting with Corp Counsel in the closed session, the Corp Counsel is authorized to proceed with dealing with the proposed litigation.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Anderson. Roll call vote. Ms. Mullen, is she on or not?
Yeah.
No, she's not.
Mr. Blumberg,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Hayden,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Bickford, yes.
Thank you, folks.
Okay. Any future agenda items?
So we have a couple applications already in the office. The deadline isn't until Friday, for cutoff for next month's meeting. There is, gonna be one asking to rezone to the RC district.
really?
So we'll have our first kick at that cat. It's that Highway 70 campground, looking to add on a different parcel and rezone it. So we'll get, see how that goes.
So that one, we rezoned it from commercial in the first place. It would be a fairly easy
Yes.
transfer.
You'll have to go to town meeting first or not?
Yeah, I think he's already talked to the town of Meenan preliminary, about that request. And then last month, I thought, I gave an update, I thought that the CAFO application was complete at the DNR. I guess that's not true. From what I've heard, it's still incomplete and
Still
nothing
loitering there, you know?
lingering there, so I don't know if we'll have a public hearing, when we'll ever have a public hearing on
Well,
that.
and we were just talking speculatively about that, but I told Ramona too, I should have asked, because I hadn't heard about it either, but with Ferris being out for so long, our lines of communication between ag and the county are thin, and so I thought, well, maybe they sent Dave an email and he wasn't there to get it, you know?
Yeah.
But no, it's not.
Yeah, so nothing going on that front that I'm aware of, so,
Well, that's okay.
yeah.
We do need at some point to get back talking with Larry, but part of that was I did a discussion with ag about our proposal to limit livestock and the level of bar that it takes to justify that to them. Well, they don't really care. They interpret the law differently than the plain language of the law. What a surprise, right? But Larry is arguing and has other clients besides us who want that interpretation to be the plain language of the law, and rather than, if he can resolve that, we don't have to litigate it, that would be better for us, so.
Now, who is Larry?
Larry Kondapaki is our counsel for large-scale livestock stuff and has been throughout. And he was on Ledge Council when the livestock sighting law was written, and he was also there for Act 67. So he knows the law pretty well, and he knows what he thinks that they wrote versus what the state agency's saying they wrote. So, interesting stuff. More reasons to avoid court at all times, right?
Jason, is there anything that we should be putting on our CUPs that says a deadline?
Well, after today's discussion, we'll probably should think about that.
I think we should make that up in the staff recommendation, so we read them each time and be sure we put them in.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the concern, and I would just say, my concern about saying, nope, you're done, is if we go to court over that one and we don't win, then it perhaps it affects the whole thing that we've already done. And I thought it's not a big enough, there's enough of a justification to allow this one to get away from us for that reason, to me. That's the only, otherwise I'd like the idea of putting a cap on, but we gave Pardon's 5 years because they knew enough to ask for it, right? And that's the rub. How do you know what they're gonna do and what they know?
But when we had that Camp Croy one come through where they wanted that 15-year plan, then we had that opposition attorney saying we can't extend that far based on what language is in our ordinance.
And I think that's kind of true too, because things can change so much down the road. But again, I've been at this long enough to remember when we didn't do that with variances either. And a perfect example that you would probably notice is on County E, where E used to come close to Bass Lake, east of McKenzie. There was a guy got a variance for a reduced lake setback and road setback because it was was a hardship. Well, county decided to relocate County Road E, but there was no sunset on that variance, and so he could still build it 45 feet, even though it's 300 feet to the road now, right? And so he hurriedly did that before they moved the road, but our advice on it was, it wouldn't matter, you guys never put a sunset on, that fact that the road moved is not gonna change his variance. That kind of thing is why counties were motivated to put sunsets on, but they could be viewed two ways. But if you're gonna make it hard and fast, I think Dave's right, it needs to be in each individual approval, as well as in the paperwork. That way it makes it bulletproof, and it might not be otherwise.
Yeah. I just have a hard time with when they put something in an application, like, we've had people give us your rental rules. We've said that before. Well, so we kind of take that's part of the application and what they're gonna operate under. But if we don't enumerate every one of those rules in that motion.
Or at least enumerate the rules that they submitted or something.
Yeah, then it doesn't apply, so, I understand, I'm not an attorney, but I don't like that
It's the
argument.
stapled on rules.
You needed to be going before judges in Washburn County more than Burnett, because Flanagan always had a really good time with Jim Taylor being pretty willing to support zoning. I didn't really have that over there, so I got way more paranoid about it. That's why
Now they got a better judge.
Pardon?
Now there's a better judge over there.
Yeah, apparently so finally. But well, we can adjourn first.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Motion by Mr. Anderson. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We're adjourned. What I gotta tell you about is her father, one time, we had a case where a guy was a common owner of interest in 240s, two government lots. And Jim Genderney was the guy who got the taxes and stuff for both of them, but he had